All right, thank you. Welcome to the PALE Subcommittee. We have Councilman DeCiccio on the phone. The rest of us are here. We just did the pledge, apparently before the TV started, and now we're going to do call to the public. Do we have call to the public? No? I saw a couple likely suspects over there, but apparently no call to the public from them today. All right. Vanya, would you move the minutes?
Sure, I move to approve the minutes for January 23, 2019.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Ayes appear to have it and do have it. Consent action items. Does anybody?
Motion
anything
to
you wanna pull?
approve items 2 through 4.
Before we do that, before you second it, Sal, you didn't want to pull anything off?
No, nothing though, Jim, thanks.
Okay, could you do that?
Sure, I second.
Thank you. You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it. All right. So we're moving on to, I think it's item 6, as I recall. 5, excuse me. Head Start monthly report. Are we going to have a report, Deanna?
No, these are information only, unless you guys would like additional information.
Hence my asking, are we going to have, do you guys want additional information?
Not on my end.
Nope, Michael, okay. Revenue contact solicitation for the Phoenix Tennis Center. You guys like to hear more about the tennis center?
Not really.
Not really, all right. Sal, tennis center?
No, I'm good. I'm fine with that, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So this is about, I actually did, so I apologize. I just want to see if you guys did. So Inger, this is about, I forget, we talked about this. Could you explain?
Sure. Vice Mayor Waring, members of the subcommittee, this is about the code of conduct. We've been out and about with the community. We've had several meetings so far. What I have today is a presentation of what we heard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
I was
sorry.
like,
I'm sorry.
maybe we didn't talk about this.
I'm
I was like, that
sorry.
doesn't sound anything like the tennis center thing. No,
All right, we'll back up. So the
warn my boys about the dangers of the word anticipating. So this is, I will
So
call
the,
up this tape and we'll watch it at home. I'm
The
just kidding.
tennis center, the Phoenix Tennis Center, was completed as far as the improvements for the courts as well as the entry point. And so now, because the contract that the vendor that runs the operation is expiring in August, we're going to need to go out for an RFP to get someone to run it. It might be the same vendor and it might be a different vendor. But what we want to present to you is the information that the Parks Board has the jurisdiction over the actual contract to run the facility, but you as the council have the jurisdiction over setting the fees. So at some point, we're going to need to come to you if the fees need to be adjusted to adjust the fees. And I just wanted to let you know because you have a piece in the tennis center.
So part of the reason I'm asking is I played at the tennis center. I paid the fee, which it's been a while. I think, is it $10 an hour?
It's actually relatively, it's less than that, it's like $5 an hour.
$5,
It's,
okay.
it's
I can-
very,
it's
it's very
been
minimal,
quite a while.
and it's each player.
So that's the fee you're talking about, though. How much would it
Correct.
cost to
Right,
play?
correct.
Same questions I sometimes have about golf and so forth. So you don't have to be a Phoenix resident. Let's say it's $5. It sounds like you're not sure, but we'll just assume that. So if you come from Scottsdale, you pay the same fee as a Phoenix resident.
That is correct. Currently you do.
And there's no age, like we're not cutting any slack for kids or anything.
No, we do have groups that come, like the schools come, and they get a better rate.
Deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a little bit of issues that shouldn't be that surprising just because
Sure.
I've talked about, this with golf as well. It seems like we're subsidizing out of city play. I'm not saying gouge them, but it just seems like we had to pay for all the infrastructure and stuff. And unless you lived in Phoenix in the past when payments were made, you didn't have to pay that. Second, I certainly as a taxpayer would be down for, even though I don't think my kids would ever use it, it's too far away, as we've discussed in a different venue as well. If you are going to have kids playing there, at least speaking strictly for myself as a taxpayer, I would be willing to now that we've got the center, to subsidize their play a little bit. So same issues I've had with golf. I just wanted to sort of highlight that. One final thing. So there was an article by Jonathan Levine, who you guys probably know. I don't know him well, but I did read the article. I guess he was a college tennis player. I think he's in billboards, or at least was here, if I recall correctly. He was a huge tennis fan growing up. Is this the he referenced, I think I'm getting it right, that Billie Jean King had played in a tournament, sure, professional tournament, at the tennis center like in the early 70s. Is that the same tennis center? Because that was unclear to me.
If it's a Phoenix Tennis Center, yes, it would have been the same center. That facility's been there since the 60s, so
It's
it's,
the 60s. I did not realize. I mean, I knew right before I got on the council, several $1 million were spent to fix it up, but I didn't realize it was, so it's like over 50 years old.
it's an old facility.
And they used to play professional tournaments there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was the hot place to play tennis back in the day. It really was.
Is it still sort of sold out now? Is it getting
It's
played?
actually becoming more popular because now the courts are fixed,
Mhm.
and now there is the
Oh, they're beautiful courts,
facilities.
at least
There is
last
the
time I saw.
facilities to actually hold the tournament, and have the things that they need, like a space where the officials can be, and also where the tournament organizers can be. So it's set up now in a better venue, and I think we will be attracting more of those more
They'll have
tournaments.
tournaments just like they have soccer tournaments at
Absolutely.
Reach 11. Is that they? And that's
Absolutely.
a revenue generator for the city, help offset the cost.
Yes, and we would
But
hope.
still let residents play.
Right, and we would hope this new operator would be a little bit more aggressive in seeking those out because now there's a better facility.
All right, so they're responsible for the promotion. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I'm not a huge
Yes.
tennis player, but I have friends who are. Regardless,
Yes.
when they were like, "Let's go to the Phoenix Tennis Center,"
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was on the city council, but the payments had been made before I got here, so it's not like that slid by me. I didn't know we had a tennis center, so and I thought I was a pretty active citizen who'd lived in Phoenix for at that point 20 years or so. So, yes, anything more marketing-wise that could be done to let people know that it's there, particularly if there's going to be a revenue recoup. That's something that also seems like it would be warranted.
And those will be parts of the request for proposals that we get. We'll also talk about the ability to consider fees related to residents, non-residents, and youth as well.
Okay, so now we've talked about what I wanted to talk about. Now, Inger, since you push your agenda on us, you can go ahead and talk
Well,
about.
can I bring up one more thing there, Jim?
Oh,
if you
yeah,
don't
I'm
mind?
sorry, Sal. I thought you didn't have questions.
No. I have an interest in this as well. So, I mean, when Jim brought up Jonathan Levine, he's bringing in a major tennis tournament, the first one here in years, March 11th through the 17th. I talked to him specifically about that, and it's going to be at the Phoenix
Phoenix
Country Club.
yeah.
And I think we're on the same page on this. And Ingrid, the question I've got for you, is this center capable to have a large a venue like that or not? I know why he wants to be at the Phoenix Country Club because it's centrally located. But is this center up to par to where it used to be at one point, or is it good enough for players, or is it good enough for professionals to come in?
Oh, sir, Councilmember DeCiccio, it certainly is a quality tennis facility. People that play tennis that I've heard from that are parts of other committees that we have in the city have gone there since it's been revamped, and they just glow about it. It really is. It is something that could be set up. Now, you might have to use some of the parking lot or some of the community center to host some of the things that go with that tournament.
Right.
But certainly the
Right.
the park next door is the size that would be able to handle the parking and some of the other things that are necessary for a large tournament. And so, we will push for the operator to get any tournaments that they can to, again, increase the awareness of that facility, but also bring in the revenue.
Well, what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, because I have not been out there since we've done that renovation, and renovations sometimes are at different levels, right? One level would be, great for our citizens. Level to be able to host a large venue. I mean, I'd like to see these kind of venues come to some of our locations, if at all possible. I'd like them to reach out to this Jonathan Levine, and because I asked him about the tennis tournament that they've got. Since my kids play tennis, and he was a really good player at one point. But, I wanted to find out more about what they were going to be doing. And just happenstance, he said, hey, look, we are bringing in a large venue in here. And it's going to be the first professional venue we've had out here in years. So this is going to be like a passion of his. It's not something that he makes any money on. It's just one of those things that he's very passionate about. But I'd like us to reach out to him at some point and see if there's any chance we can bring him into our center.
Councilman DeCiccio, we certainly will.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's plan on that after I imagine you're not going to get his attention anytime between now and the 17th, but sometime after that. Let's say before the end of March, if you guys don't mind reaching out to him. If you need a phone number, either Jim or I might have a number for him.
Absolutely.
All right, good enough.
And I will say that they used to have the big tournaments here too.
Yeah, they were
I think it might have been
huge.
at the Princess, if I recall. So
Yeah.
I didn't go to it, but I know people who did. Agassi, I think, won it several times. So they had not all the big names, but they had big names, and obviously I think they moved it to Vegas, and they've had, they really haven't had that since. They've had a couple senior tournaments here, but certainly we're not going to get Roger Federer, I don't think, at our tennis center, but there are another tier of players, to Sal's
Absolutely.
point, with this tournament they're having. I should have been more clear. They were having the tournament I referenced, Jonathan Levine's, at the Phoenix Country Club. But I don't recall there being substantial difference. I don't know how many courts each has and so forth, but
The tennis center has 20 courts. I think what our limitation might be is we don't have a stadium court, and that might be
Yeah.
something
Oh.
that we don't have one big
is there
stadium.
one at the,
Got
I'd say
it.
competitors, but like, is there a stadium court at the country club?
I have not actually been on the country club property, but I will probably make a visit out there.
My Rotary Club used to meet there, so I mean, you could see the courts from. I don't remember seeing anything that looked like a stadium, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe they do. If they don't, though, to Sal's point about let's get that number and
Absolutely.
try to if that's a moneymaker for the city, offsetting the cost for taxpayers, that's something I'd like to at least discuss as well. Okay, thank you. Now, Inger, we're going to talk about your agenda.
All right. Thank you. Again, good morning, Vice Mayor Waring and members of the subcommittee. Today I'm here to give you information on the code of conduct and the meetings that we've had so far, and to receive your feedback on what you might want to see in the code of conduct that might not have been addressed through our various meetings with the community. So what is the code of conduct? The code of conduct is a list of rules and regulations that govern behavior and conduct within our parks and facilities. It's behaviors that are deemed acceptable and things that we would not want to see in the parks. It's also providing us an opportunity to provide consequences to people who don't provide the correct behavior, could lead to suspension or revoking of privileges to use the park for a period of time. And again, those are things we're continuing to work through. Preliminary community input, as I mentioned, we had several meetings, 5 meetings in January. We had about 70 members of the community that came to visit and give us their feedback. We also had members of the council and their staff there. We had the Healthy Giving Council. We had representatives from Human Services and Neighborhood Services, the police department, law department, the prosecutor's office, to listen to what the feedback was that we could then put into a code of conduct that we're going to take out to the community here in March. The dialogue was fantastic. There was a lot of conversation about what the community sees and what they want to see as far as appropriate behavior in the park. So the community feedback that we did have, it was not just about flatland parks, it was also about some of our mountain parks. And one of the first things we heard at the meetings was about trail etiquette. It was in South Phoenix, and so I imagine it was referencing South Mountain Park and some of the other parks, but trail etiquette. Things like who gets to yield to who, what kinds of motorized vehicles can be on there or can't, also after-hours hiking and creation of spider trails, things like that. Monopolization of park amenities was another one. So sometimes people take a ramada and they take it all day long, and then other members of the community can't use it, and so that was something that was brought up. Misuse of park features or using things for unintended purposes. So like there was a lot of conversation about people repairing bikes on top of picnic tables, and that was something that the community didn't want to see. Bathing in the restrooms or in the drinking fountains, those kinds of things. Littering and dumping, that was another one that was mentioned. Using wheeled devices for purposes different than was designated to transport items, things like wheelchairs and things like baby strollers, those types of things. Other community feedback, general improper behavior, swearing around playgrounds and kids, near the basketball court, those types of things. Driving vehicles, people not picking up after their dogs. The health and safety issues that are related to parks. So people vaping and smoking in the parks, or maybe using needles in the parks. Those types of things were brought up as concerns. Another thing, a recommendation was more activation and programming in the parks. Things like partnering with the community, maybe to have a movie night or some other type of activity, a health fair, that would activate the park, which then would promote positive behavior and not necessarily the negative behavior we don't want to see in the park. So the process and next steps, I did mention that we had the preliminary meetings with the community. We have talked to the Parks and Recreation Board as well. We've worked with law to draft a code of conduct based on what we've heard, but we haven't finalized it yet because the last piece is hearing from you on what you might want to see if there's something we haven't mentioned today. So after we hear from you, we'll put that information into the code of conduct, and then we'll put it out for the public meetings that will be through the month of March. And you have a list of them in front of you when those meetings are and where they're located. So on Friday, we're going to put it online. People will be able to see it. The first meeting is on Monday, the 4th. At that particular meeting, people will be able to give us feedback. We'll also have it online. People can give us responses to what they're seeing as far as what we've outlined in the Code of Conduct. Then we'll come back to the Parks Board and also to the subcommittee to say, this is what we heard based on this Code of Conduct, and we'll make any changes, and then we'll finalize it sometime in May. Again, some of these dates are subject to change because if we hear more feedback and we need to do more research, we'll need to take a little bit more time. If not, we'll be able to stay on track. And then in the summertime, if we're able to get this thing through the process, we'll be able to roll out the Code of Conduct, and we'll have a public awareness campaign. All these things will have components where we review them with the Parks Board, but also with the City Council, so that everybody's on the same page and okay with what it is before we roll it out. Again, education and enforcement, we'll have a public awareness campaign. We're going to lead again with education and with services. So if someone's doing something that we say is a behavior that's not appropriate, it's not going to be, the hammer down the first time. It's going to be education about why and what we need people to do in order to be able to continue to use the facility. Continuous education and enforcement is important. Again, progressive processes. So again, maybe the first time is a warning. Maybe the second time is, again, depending on what the severity is, a warning. But there might be opportunities where people are just not really wanting to do positive behaviors in the park, and those individuals will have more serious consequences. And again, the goal is to develop the code of conduct that leads and promotes clean, safe, accessible facilities and parks. We also are going to work with the police department to integrate our systems so that if there's someone who's having those kinds of issues in the parks, that the communication goes between our systems so that the police department know what's happening with the rangers, and the rangers know what's happening with the police department as far as specific parks and specific individuals. And then this information, again, everything's going to be on phoenix.gov/parks, and there's a specific button that talks about code of conduct. These are the upcoming public meetings. Again, across the city of Phoenix, they'll be from 6 to 8, starting March 4th, and last one is March 21st. If people can't attend the actual meetings, they can go online, they can call our offices. There's a variety of ways for people to give us the information. And with that, I will answer any questions or take any feedback that we can put into the code of conduct that we have heard from the community. Again, much of it is the behaviors that we've mentioned on the slides previously that we've incorporated into a code of conduct. We worked with the law department, we worked with the prosecutor's office, and so we feel that we have something that once we put the feedback in from the subcommittee that we can put out and people can give us some good responses back to if that's what they want to have in their parks.
Jim?
Any questions?
Yeah, Jim, do you mind?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple things. I'm in our parks quite a bit. I do a lot of hiking. So every park is different, and every even situation. So if you're on the hiking trail, one situation might be different than others. I like what you put together here. It's all encompassing. I can't think of one thing that you've not added onto that. But every park has a specific issue on its own. So, like when I'm out hiking, the biggest issues that I hear, and I got to tell you, the biking community as a whole is amazing. They're really respectful. They don't go fast around kids. But you'll see a lot of more of the flatland type hiking trails. You'll see a lot of kids out there, and bicyclists go by at a pretty fast pace. And it just takes a kid just to make one bad movement, they're going to get hit, right? And the dog poop thing is pretty big in some places, not all, but in some places it is. People don't pick up it. As a whole, generally dog owners have been very respectful and they pick it up. So I like your progression part, Inger, a lot. I'm not big on the penalties. I've never been that type of person. I'd rather give people incentives and let them know and let them work it out on their own, and then figure that 2% of the population is the one that's usually bad. And those are the ones you have to go after. But the majority of people are pretty respectful and pretty good. But every park is different, and it's great having a code of conduct. But I think that let's say, because I use War Paint or Telegraph or one of those, right? Those areas have, if you're going to put, you've got to let people know what it is. It's great having the rules and great having those things, but if you don't put a post out like, hey, look, guys, here is the horses come first, then pedestrians, and then, and then bicyclists. You know what I mean? That's your right. That's your right of being able to pass, right? And if you don't put things out there where people are visible and they see it on a pretty normal basis, a regular basis, they're not going to know. And you might have to have a sign up, in some of the places, which is, it is what it is, but just to say, clean up after your dog. I mean, those are the two big things I see. But in the flatland parks, I think you're going to have other things where you're going to have the swearing and you're going to have those kinds of things. Then you ought to have proper signage for that. Do you know what I'm saying, Inger? And I think a lot of that is more communication. We don't have a ranger that's going to be able to go to every single one of these and monitor every single person. It just doesn't work like that. Citizens as a whole, they've been able to monitor it on their own. But I think the signage itself would help, or some way of communicating that specific to that park. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like the swearing. Yeah, you're not going to see as much swearing on hiking trails. You're just not going to do it, But you're going to see it after people have had a few cocktails and they're out there on the picnic table and that kind of thing. You're going to see things like that. So, I think it has to be communicated to the public in the right way, and every park ought to be looked at onto its own.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I'm going to call on myself. I have a question, several questions really. How many complaints do we get? Does anybody monitor that now, currently?
So, complaints come in a variety of ways. They come in through.
Let me
Sure.
ask it a different way. I'm sorry to cut you off. I should have asked it. Probably reverse. How do people even know who to complain to? And then how many kind of actually get compiled in a given year, if they even get compiled?
So Vice Mayor Waring, members of the subcommittee, we get complaints through our district offices, and there's a sign in each park that has a phone number, and so we get them through our general office here on the 16th floor, and then they get distributed out to the various districts that they might be.
So if you're at the Paradise Valley Park, for example, and somebody's behaving in an appropriate fashion, there's a community center there, so you go into the front desk, and that's kind of the.
And that's another. Some places have community centers,
Some don't, though,
and some
but,
don't.
yeah.
Sometimes they give feedback to our maintenance staff who are in the parks. Also, our rovers. We have rovers at nighttime that go and unlock and lock doors. Our park rangers are out to a lot of the parks. Again, a wide variety of ranges. They come through the council offices sometimes. So we get people that express their concerns through a myriad of ways. And again, we go back usually to that district office. We have several district offices in our communities that break up the city so that we're dealing with a specific region. And they deal with it, and they usually respond back either to the council office if it came from there, to the neighbor if the complaint came from that person. Or we work again with our park maintenance staff and our rangers to make sure that we're understanding what's happening. We also do have a reporting system for things that are more serious, that might not just be a complaint, but vandalism or graffiti, things of that nature. So we do have a way that we're tracking those kinds of behaviors as well through a system that tells us we had 15 or 20 in this particular park and maybe 0 in another park. So there's a variety of ways how we collect that and get the information.
So, and that's not really going to change.
No.
Particularly. It's just now it's going to be a little more delineated.
I think what this code of conduct
What you're not
will
supposed to be doing.
allow us to address is some of the behaviors that keep people from wanting to go to the parks.
Yes.
And so that's what we really want. We want everybody to go to the park, but we want people to behave in a manner that everybody feels comfortable being in that park at the same time.
Well, confess, I live on one of our pristine borders, so I have a park in another city very close to my house, so that's kind of the park we go to generally, just because it's just the closest one. It's, right there, less than half a mile. Our parks are better, but
Thank
it
you
is
for
what it
that.
is. Some travel time also obviously factors into things. Something's right there. So, but I obviously visit lots of other city facilities, and I have seen behavior that is just completely insane. One thing that struck me about the list is how many of those things, I find myself doing that a lot. I guess it's just a function of being an old codger now, but I really got to tell you that. I really got to tell you, there's kids right there. I got to tell you not to do X, whatever it is. But Sal is right. There is a little bit of a shaming mechanism in here rather than the actual punishment. I think our neighborhood services department has found that if they send a citation, I think it's 92 or 93%. If you have weeds in your yard that are too high or whatever, we do have metrics on that. And it is a complaint-driven system. 92, 93% of people take care of it on the first letter. You never have to say anything else again. You never hear from them again, which is exactly what you want. And then it's another 2 or 3%. It's another letter before you ever get up to something that's judicial. Hopefully we'd never get to that point here. But, most people, if you just say, hey, could you kind of dial that back? Shouldn't have had to probably tell you this, but now that we are having to tell you this, because I've just seen some crazy things, and believe it or not all of it was at actual council meetings. There's some other places where I've just been like, wow, you're acting like this out in public? I mean, you're 60. What are you thinking here? So some of the things you listed certainly fall into that category, and I'm very glad that you touched on we don't want to chase people away from our parks. They're expensive. If people aren't going to use them, that's not right. And I always think, just personalizing, I always think of someone like, frankly, my mom. I've seen behavior where I'm like, yeah, she'd never go back. She'd just feel really uncomfortable and just weird. Some of the stuff that I have personally observed. Not even stuff like directed necessarily at me or something, just how people are interacting. So I am glad that we're doing this. I would, to Sal's point about the list, at the head of the trail, put, here's who goes first, second, third. I would throw a word like please on there. That may sound silly. Maybe that's just a personal thing of mine, but I do think it kind of gets like, hey, we're all kind of in this together. We're trying to I just think that captures a lot rather than just like orders. Here's how you're going to behave. I do think a please on those signs, hey, there are kids here or something. Please, there are kids here. So watch the language. Every time something might slip out or whatever, freedom of speech being what it is, I am shocked when I go to the grocery store and stuff, how many people now are wearing t-shirts with like the F word clearly in block letters spelled out about this or that subject. And I'm like, wow, okay, maybe we can't address that exactly, but if there's some way to kind of get at, really this is supposed to be like a family, kid-friendly, above all others, see my comments about the tennis center and the rates, could you dial that back a little bit while you're here? And something we're all trying to enjoy. If there's a way to sort of capture that, starting with a please, I think that would be probably helpful. But it is a good point about putting out the list, because how are people supposed to really know
Absolutely.
if you don't put it down? And then maybe if you see something you don't like, call this number, visit this website. At some point, that would be helpful, because I do think people, however many complaints we're getting, I bet there's 10,000 others where people are like, I don't even know who to talk to. If you're out on the trail, there's not a staffer right there. By the time you get back to the car, you're like, eh. I just wonder how many people are like, that was kind of, I'm not going back there again. And that's really unfortunate. I hope it's not too many, but I bet it's some. So, we're not going to solve every problem. It's too much space. We don't have a park ranger on every corner, nor should we, but so I just wanted to kind of make those thoughts. I appreciate you doing this.
Great
though.
feedback.
We'll do what we
Yep.
can to make it as family-friendly an experience as we can.
And we will certainly incorporate this. I think one of the other things to your thought about please, the thank you for visiting maybe on the back of the sign.
Yeah. I mean, just, we really appreciate you coming and just, making it a fun experience. That might just kind of put it in a different context.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Penny raised her hand, but I guess you don't get to ask her questions here. All right. Call the Publix later, Penny. You can fill out a card.
Okay.
Oh, you were just scratching. All right. Okay. Thank you. Next, we've got the capital improvement. Yep. I suspected that, yeah.
Vice Mayor Waring and members of the subcommittee, today I'm here to discuss our 5-year capital improvement project budget, and also the specific request of the subcommittee, the Phoenix Parks Preserve Initiative, and an update related to that. So the Phoenix Parks and Recreation Department has a capital improvement budget that's made up of primarily Parks Preserve Initiative funds, and in some cases impact fees. The 5-year budget that we have currently is about $143 million for the next 5 years. So the history of the Parks Preserve Initiative Fund, again, in 1999, 1/10 of a cent for 10 years was voted by the general public, and it was over 80% on that particular ballot. And then it was renewed again in 2008, again for 30 years. So again, this expires in 2038. The ballot language that was different in 2008 was that 60% was for flatland and urban parks, and 40% was for the preserves, trailheads, et cetera. And that was a switch from the earlier language. We've spent about $510 million since the inception of the program. The annual average that we bring in for the Parks Preserve Initiative Fund is about $28 million, with about $16 million being for flatland parks and about $11 million then for the mountain parks. The other source of funds that we have only in specific areas where growth is prevalent is impact fees. And again, it's primarily generated by the new development and the need for infrastructure. It is a special fee that is charged to each home or group of homes that is built. It has restrictions. Some of the restrictions include the older money. There are fewer restrictions, but the newer money in the last several years, the restrictions are you can't use it for trails or trailheads. You can't use it for aquatic facilities. You can't use it for buildings that are larger than 3,000 square feet. You can't use it for a park that's over 30 acres. And so you can't replace equipment. It has to be new things. And so there's some restrictions. So again, impact fees are not as easy to use as the Parks Preserve Initiative funds are. Some of the examples of recent places where we've used impact fees: the Pinnacle Dog Park, Cesar Chavez not community center, but the actual bathrooms that we built, and the soccer fields, and then Dean Hills. That's another location. So how are projects selected? Each year we do about 60 projects, depending again on the amount of money that we have, but the average has been about 60. We evaluate and prioritize the facilities and the various parks based on the condition. And again, it's things like parking lots, playgrounds, ball fields, lights, area lights, those types of things. Will it have an operating impact? If it does, that's something that impacts whether we do the project or not, because as you know, the operating costs go on and on forever, and if this fund uses all the money for operating, then we don't have any ability to make repairs and improvements. City council feedback. We meet several times throughout the year, and you hear from your citizens, and so you give us the feedback, but we also hear from the community directly, and so when we do, we review that information with not only the council office, but the Parks and Recreation Board. Pickleball is a good example of that. We had people that expressed the need to have pickleball. Pickleball wasn't on our plans, and we've had the addition of 25 pickleball courts over the last several years to meet that demand. So that was something that, again, is driven by the community. Response to emergency infrastructure and facility repairs. Heating and air conditioning is important to facilities. Roofs are important to facilities. So sometimes those things come up and we have to address those. Security, safety, and accessibility. Again, those things come up periodically because of either something that's happened, and so we address accessibility to facilities sometimes through this fund as well. 90% or more of all the projects we do really do come through the Parks Preserve Initiative Fund. We really don't, some years we don't have any impact fee related projects, and some years we have a couple. So just some highlights to go through. Cesar Chavez Community Center design is one we're currently working on. Then we have two years of funding for that to design it, but then also to build it. The Phoenix Mountain Preserves, Payastoa Peak is getting some major renovations. South Mountain has had major renovations at all of the trailheads in South Mountain. Margaret T. Hance, the design and construction documents to get this to fruition. The Phoenix Tennis Center, the entry building, was this past year, which we just talked about. The Pinnacle Dog Park, and also the soccer fields. These are projects. Soccer fields are coming this next year, and we just finished the Pinnacle Dog Park just a few weeks ago. So those are some of the projects. Again, this is just an overview of our CIP and our Parks Preserve Initiative program. And with that, I'll take any questions.
You guys have questions? I do have some. Following up on something we talked about at a previous meeting that I'm sure you all committed to memory, I had issues with the locations of our facilities, and you gave us a sort of a spreadsheet of, you know, what goes where, and obviously most of the stuff is south of Glendale. I think you maybe mentioned 4 projects there, and I think or 5 projects there maybe, and you know, the Pinnacle Dog Park, which is great, I think is the only one that's even remotely close to north of Glendale. The tennis center is south of Glendale or right
That is
there, right?
just south of Glendale, yes.
So, you know, if most of the parks, et cetera, are way far away from my district and frankly Felda's district, you know, then obviously the operating and maintenance and stuff, that money is also being paid for by, at least in part, taxpayers in the northern part of the city, is being redirected to stuff that I got to believe they're much less likely to use just because of the distance they would have to travel to get to it. You mentioned South Mountain, but let's take the tennis center. It's the furthest north, and we were just discussing it. I expressed that before. Tennis player, I didn't even know we had a tennis center until I had to get on the city council to find that out. How many people are going to drive? I live more or less at the southern border of my district, roughly. So Shea, Cactus. How many people are going to drive from there to go play tennis at the tennis center? I mean, that's going to be, you do that sucker at night on a weeknight, that is going to be a slog to get down there and no fun at all. I wonder how many people would actually do that. So I would hope that we're spreading around the resources, but also since by definition the operating expenses are again flowing to the southern half of the city, that maybe we get a little more like capital improvements or more projects. Now we got the Pinnacle Dog Park, that's great, but you're just looking at, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 people up there who are a long way away from the tennis center. They're a long way away from Margaret Hance Park. They're way far away from South Mountain. They're just, you know, maybe on the weekends, but it's still a long way. Now you can't move a mountain, so that's kind of the way it is. But I mean, all great things. I'm not saying any of them aren't meritorious, but I had addressed the fairness before, and that's something, you know, I'd like to see in our plans. And it's just something that I would hope would always be considered, you know, going forward.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, you saw the map, so I don't think it had been kind of broken up like that before. I think that was kind of an irrefutable thing. I think we had more trails, but other than that, it wasn't even close on, I think, any other metric you used in terms of what kind of facilities.
So Vice Mayor Waring, members of the subcommittee, will continue to look at all that, where we do have park space available and what can we do there. And are impact fees something we can use? In your area, you have impact fees, and
We
council.
built some nice stuff.
Yeah,
A couple dog
yep,
parks and so forth.
yeah.
I mean, it's,
And the trailhead and the Sonoran Preserve up there. So there are some opportunities, but again, that is an area of growth, and there might be future opportunities in the coming future.
and here's one thing, Michael, if I may, since
Oh, yeah,
I'm
go
on a
for
roll,
it.
and then I'll apologize.
Oh, no, no
I
problem.
wouldn't be so rude,
Yeah.
but or maybe I would be and I just wouldn't recognize it. But either way, I will get to you next. It's right to this point, and it connects with something we already talked about: the code of conduct and the parks. One thing you and I have talked about a lot was off-leash dogs. But now, since we had those discussions, which was several years ago, off-leash dogs at parks. Obviously, that maybe more than anything. The park I go to in the other city, you see that all the time. Sometimes big dogs are chasing around. It just, as a parent, makes you a little nervous, particularly when my kids are smaller. I mean, it just, So that was an issue we were definitely hearing about from several different. Now we use the capital to build a couple of dog parks. I can't remember the last time I got a call about that. I don't think every off-leash dog has migrated to those parks, but you know, I do think behavior was changed by building stuff in the north half of the city because they were right. We really you didn't have a lot of options before. Where are you going to go? So, and I think that's a criminal site, right? That's not just a
You
code
can,
of
you can
conduct
be,
thing.
you
That's
can be
a-
cited for
yeah.
that, that's correct.
So, to Sal's point, now you're kind of upping it to like police officers are coming. We had that happen, not through our office. Just, people called and the police officer went out there and it's like, it is what it is. But so this and how people interact with their community and with each other definitely are intertwined. I'm probably not saying it as articulately as I could, but I do think, building some stuff and giving people an outlet, I think improve the quality of life. Complaints that we were having all the time, unless you're keeping these complaints from me, and I don't think you are, we haven't been having that.
Not as much, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely dropped to
Yes.
the point where we're getting it all the time, and now we're not in my office. So I just want to make that point that these are not just academic exercises or me spouting off. I think it actually improves things for at least some people. And I'd like to see the capital improvement project, to the extent it can, sort of reflect that. And if we're going to spend more money by definition on the operations in the southern part of the city, the southern 2/3, because of the number of facilities, then I would like to see maybe an extra dog park come our way or something. That doesn't seem unfair to me. Again, not begrudging anybody anything that's going into their district. I'm just saying, it just seems like fair is fair. So I'm
you.
sorry I kept you waiting too long.
Oh,
Councilman
no, not at
Noakowski,
all.
so-
I was just gonna say that, it's tough being the, Parks Director, because I know on our side of town, we're saying that, we need more soccer fields. Why did Reach 11 be built out in North Phoenix when we have the private sector with a facility of 20-plus soccer fields that are full every weekend? So, there's needs, and I think what we need to do is really look at the growth of our city, and especially in the southwest where we have a lot of new development, and on the north side of our city also with all that new development. I went to the Anthem outlets this Sunday, and I was just amazed of all the houses. I mean, I remember going out there with my
Used to be nothing.
yeah,
Nothing.
my ATC, and driving out there in the mountains out there, and
Get run
now-
over if you do that now.
no, it's all houses,
Yeah, it's
right?
all houses.
Yeah, so I think that
Cars will run you over.
I think it's a tough job that you have, but then there's a lot of needs out there. So let's see how we can balance it.
Thank you.
And can I, again, touching on something we touched on earlier with the tennis center, the Reach 11, it's an excellent point. We have Reach 11, but we don't let just, so we have a shortage of soccer fields, and you're like, well, but there's tons of soccer fields there. Yeah, we don't let people use them, and they can actually see them as they drive by, or they can almost see them from their houses. We don't let them use them in mass, so it's almost a little bit of a tease in that sense. I mean, it's a good point. It hasn't alleviated the need we have for these fields because, we don't just let everybody just
Use it, yeah.
wander in and play. And they've noticed that too, because we have had that complaint a number of times. Okay. Vanya, Sal, do you have any?
No question.
Is he still on? Okay. Any questions, Sal? Sounds like.
Not on my end,
Okay,
Jim.
I got you. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Okay. So, thank you. I think that's it. Inger, you're off the hot seat.
For right now.
Yeah, for now, right now, exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. I did. This was I apologize. We had, before you guys come up, we had a couple cards. I should have done that first. I apologize. Jerry, do you want to go first, or do you want to arm wrestle Tim for it? All right.
There you go.
That'll work.
As much as we talk about 3PI over the last few years, most people out in the public have no idea what it is. And yet, anybody that spends any money in Phoenix is contributing to the 3PI, Parks and Preserve Initiative. And, for the last couple of years now, I get a monthly statement of the balance of the 3PI fund. And it's currently at $62 million is the balance. And it annually brings in another 32 million approximately, which, we're talking about $95 million roughly, which if 3PI were a department, would be the fourth largest in the city, right behind Parks and Rec and fire and then police. And last I heard, I think Parks is just under 1,000 employees. 3PI fund has nobody employed. Nobody is in charge of 3PI fund, $95 million a year. And that wasn't always the case. When the people voted for Prop A in 2008, overwhelmingly, 85% roughly, voted for it. And at that time, there was an administrator of this fund. And about 5 years later, there was no longer an administrator of the fund. So it was overseen by one person, the parks director. So there's no separation. That's like taking those two departments and saying, you're in charge of all this money. We want to go back to 2008 and give the voters what they voted for. There should be, if this were an equity fund, there would be a money manager overseeing this fund. And there's no separation. There's no accountability for the fund, and there's no checks and balances. If it's directed to go to this, there's nobody there speaking for that fund or the people. And we think we need to get back to that. That's, to me, the money's there to go out and hire, basically a fiduciary for the people's fund. And a counterpoint to the parks director, because this is going to go on into the future. This is nothing on Inger. This fund's going to be there forever because people love their park system. But we want to establish now, going forward, that there's some accountability both ways. Thank you.
Good morning, Tim Surikowski. I now realize, and it's been brought up, that the city of Phoenix contributes pretty much nothing to doing any type of restoration to any of the park system, and they haven't for the last 5 years. Part of the Parks Department is when the 3PI was instituted, they thought that the city of Phoenix would also contribute money so that they would have some extra money with use of 3PI. What has now taken place is you guys have taken and used 3PI for all your construction. I've been saying this for years, and that's not right either. 3PI was to help and get us over the threshold of really making our park system a great park system. What you've done is you've scammed the system, taken away all the money that you guys were going to use to help contribute to do restoration of any of the parks, and now you're relying solely on 3PI money. That's wrong. It's completely wrong. These people are taxed, and some of their tax dollars are supposed to be used for renovation of some of these parks, and you're not doing it. We were taxed twice now because they expected our park system to be pristine, and it's not pristine yet at the present time because you're not contributing. You're just taking all of 3PI money and you're allowing 3PI money to run everything for all these new buildings and everything, and that's not what the fund was supposed to be used for. It's supposed to be used to help out. So now we're at a system now with the Parks Department that they're not contributing anything for any of these maintenance, or really not maintenance, but buildings, and everyone's relying on 3PI. What happens if 3PI money wasn't there? Where would the money come from? I think we need a money manager for 3PI. It's been a slush fund for too many years. Let's get technical here, what the money's been used for. It's been used for everything except the purpose of what it should be used for. And now, over the last number of years since Jerry and I have become involved in it, they can't use it as a slush fund any longer. Sorry, the true facts of the nature of really, I can go back, I can go through all the money, everything else that's been used. So now we need to really tighten up the belts at the present time. We need to have a manager of the money, and we need to have it so that they can look at the projects that are taking place at the present time and making sure the money is being spent correctly. Because at this point, you know, I understand you can't have the chicken in the hen house scenario here. You can't do it. You got to have an outside person or someone else who's going to take care of the money. Thanks.
All right, ready to move on to item 9.
You know, I just want to respond really quick because I know that we have a lot of parks in my district that needed some love and care, and we approached you, and basically, as long as it made sense and it wasn't going to add extra staff to staff those parks, they were all taken care of, and major remodel within my district, and I know other districts too. I think the problem that people need to understand is that if we're going to build new parks, that requires a commitment of many years of staff members. And that's where the parks have been good stewards in saying we don't have the budget or the funding for the general fund to hire individuals for long term. So that's where that's why we end up with about 95,000 according to your numbers, because they've been pretty good stewards. They haven't just been out there spending the money like crazy. Now, there's been a couple incidents, and I agree with that. Maybe we weren't the best stewards with that money, and we got our hands slapped. And it was something that the community brought to our attention that they wanted to be spent for other things. But in defense of our parks, I think that over the last 4 or 5 years, they've been doing a great job and making sure that those funds are going to needed projects, especially when it comes to, I can speak on behalf of District 7.
Thank you.
Arts.
Well, good morning, Vice Mayor Waring and members of the subcommittee. I am Mitch Menchaca, the new Arts and Culture Director, joined by my colleague Ed Lebo, Public Art Program Director. We are here to give an update on the Phoenix Office of Arts and Culture's Capital Improvement Program projects. 2 of our CIP service areas include cultural facilities and public art. I will discuss our cultural facilities and then turn the presentation over to my colleague. The Office of Arts and Culture manages 8 cultural facilities, and in 2001 and 2006 bonds, we built or enhanced several cultural facilities, including buildings like the Arizona Opera, Black Theater Troupe, Children's Museum of Phoenix, Valley Youth Theater, Phoenix Theater, and etc. We still have some monies left in our capital budget for updates to the Carver Museum at $43,899, and then $997,902 for the future creation of a Latino cultural center. So I will pause for any questions that you may have on the cultural facilities before I turn it over to my colleague.
Any questions? No? Sal?
Good morning, Vice Mayor Waring and members of the subcommittee. I'm glad to be here today. This is an overview of the public art projects that we have underway this year, and also where we are in spending the budget. You may recall that the Percent Art program really began back in 1986, and the effort was to improve both the appearance and function of city infrastructure. It takes a penny out of every buck that the city spends on designing and building capital infrastructure, and involves artists in doing that. And over the years, we've developed close to 200 projects, major projects around the city in all neighborhoods. The projects have to be at or near city capital sites, and so we go through a fairly lengthy process of mapping where city capital projects are in relation to where funding could be brought and where the public need might be to have improvements. And of course, these funds are capital funds. We can't use them for other really important city purposes involved in programming and operations. This year we have 31 projects in the art plan. There are 25 in progress now for about $11.7 million. 6 are in the planning stages and will come forward in the coming months and year for about $446,000. So right now we have about $12.2 million in capital funds, in developing public art projects. As you know, every May we come to the subcommittee with next year's art plan, and these numbers will all be updated at that point, and we expect that there may be some additional projects in that plan that really can bring some benefit to the communities. The breakdown is interesting. We have about 7 key sources of funds. Aviation is obviously a large share of that. Then we have water and wastewater funds. We also have solid waste through public works. And then we work with streets and transit for additional projects going forward. But this is sort of the pie chart of where the funds come from. And to select projects for the art plan, we work with all of the departments to see where their capital construction and planning is occurring, but also work with your offices, neighborhood services, a wide range of community organizations to hear where people think projects could be in relation to the city's infrastructure. And that becomes the footprint for mapping the plan that we move forward on. Here are just some highlights of what has been completed recently. Those of you who've been out to Terminal 3 know that there's a really beautiful terrazzo floor that connects the terminal to the new South Concourse that was done by Arizona artist Teresa Villegas. And it was also built, I should say, by Stone Finish, which is a company right here in the valley. And so a lot of really talented craftsmen involved in developing these floors. The other is the East Atrium, which is more of a celebratory place where people arrive, their first step in Arizona, and the artwork there celebrates really the deep history of aviation and military aviation. As we all know, that terminal was recently renamed for former Senator and late Senator John McCain, and so it celebrates that as well. Vice Mayor Waring, you had questions about the art and function and the practicality of some of the works we do. You know, one of the things, and it's been one of the reasons that the public art program for more than 30 years has been a nationwide example, is that by involving artists in every aspect of our capital program, we're actually involving artists and designers in developing answers to public needs and improving the function. We know that artwork can improve the appearance of things, but a lot of, I think the goal of the program since the inception has been to find ways to expand and improve the function of what we build for communities. So you see these examples of bus shelters with shade screening. We also have a really interesting and I think promising series of partnerships with the water department. The water department has inactive well sites that are in different parts of the city. On the left is the condition of some of this well site that was at 55th Avenue in Edgemont, recently updated. And all these well sites will be different because every community is different. In this case, the community wanted a celebratory space that could also soften the impact of the heat. Vacant lots, we've learned, can be as hot as asphalt streets in the summer. I have a little heat gun. I go around and check on things, and if you point it at a 108-degree day on asphalt, it'll be 160 plus degrees. If you point that at dirt and an empty lot, it'll be approximately the same temperature. And so anything we can do to soften these empty lots wherever we can and to bring in artwork, but also landscaping, we can bring down that heat impact on neighborhoods.
So if I could interject there. So the well program is exactly what I would encourage us to be using this money for. I think it's a perfect example. There are others, and not necessarily exclusively, but obviously it serves the practical purpose of the security. At the same time, I've had the privilege, I guess, of seeing quite a few of our well sites, and they're not always the most attractive. The ambiance of the well site is probably lost on a lot of the neighbors who live right by them, and they do, generally speaking, live right by them. I mean, they're right next door. Not just the ones in my district, but I think the one you cited as well, and certainly other examples. So I've been very happy to vote for those things. I think that is certainly something we should owe it to our neighbors. If we're going to have a city property, it shouldn't be an ugly blight on a neighborhood, no matter how, obviously, it's a well. We know what it's doing there, so no matter how important it is as we need to do this thing so it's going to get done function. We're digging more wells now, so I would certainly hope we would continue in this vein, because that is an excellent use of this money and is probably well received by neighbors all around the city. You know, we have wells everywhere, but again, they are usually embedded right in neighborhoods. We've got a couple, one in Deborah Stark's district right across the street from mine, and another one that I drive by all the time, where we're building wells, and they are, I think we knocked down the back wall of one fellow whose door I happened to knock on, so we're gonna fix that for him. But I mean, but my point in mentioning that is that's how close they are. They actually, I think, hit his wall. At least that's what he self-reported. He's like, oh, they said they're gonna fix it. He wasn't complaining. But it's certainly something that is right. It has more immediacy, no offense, than the floor of the airport or something, which also, you know, may have its uses. Obviously, it's the entryway to Phoenix for a lot of people, or Arizona for a lot of people. But certainly, I would encourage you, projects of that kind, and you can't just leave the wells unattended. They have to be secured. A big, ugly chain link fence, that's just not what we want. Nobody would want that in their neighborhood. So I'm glad that we're addressing it. I don't know how many of those we've done, but it seems like quite a few. And please continue with projects of that kind. So, thank you. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
No, Vice Mayor Waring, I appreciate that. We have, to answer your question, there are 5 underway right now, and there are multiple others we're looking at in all city council districts coming forward. This is an example of an odor control station, which is not well site, but odor control. And people pass by this all the time. On the left, you can see what it was. In our better days, we could probably jump over it. Maybe some of you still can jump over this, but we wanted to improve the security of this. And we also wanted to improve the beauty of it. And when this was going in, neighbors who were walking by, bicycling, running, stopped to say, what is this? This is amazing. And it was just an artist working with an engineering firm to improve exactly what you say. It's these community facilities to make them better. This is a project that is in construction right now. It's in District 6, and right across the street is District 3. It's up at 6th Street in Butler. But again, chain link fence on the left. It also has a Maricopa air quality monitoring station there. We've worked with Maricopa County and obviously the Water Department to create a different kind of community space. Trees will bring in shade and artwork that the community was delighted to see as well. This project is one in Council District 5. It's at 73rd Avenue in Crittenden. We've gone through a fairly extensive community process, worked with the Estrella Supermoms and folks in the neighborhood, and more than 100 kids at Trevor Brown High School. And one of the things that they told us was exactly what you mentioned, Vice Mayor Waring, is that, you know, we walk by this site every day. It has chain link and barbed wire. Can you do something to soften that, add trees, add a sculptural element, some lighting because it's dark, all of these things, and we hope to come to you next month with a proposal to begin construction on this, and we'll be in touch about that as well. We also have these 2 sites that you recently approved, and as we head into design, I'll be in touch with both your office, Vice Mayor Waring and Councilman Nowakowski, for community contacts, because we want the community to come out, talk to the artisan team, and tell the team what they would like to see in these sites that are really cheek by jowl right next to their homes.
Well, you can see in the picture what we were talking about earlier. You see the houses. I'm very familiar with the top one, which is in my district. I was just out there in that neighborhood a week or so ago. But I think to the discussion about the code of conduct related to the dog parks, you know, you're really improving the quality of life of people. If you live right next to that thing, and that 44th Street in Bell, or excuse me, 44th Street in Beverly, it's just south of Bell. It's not an attractive property. It never has been. I've been going by there for almost 20 years. I used to live right up the street. You know, I think those neighbors are really going to appreciate that change, because that's not a major street. I mean, 44th Street is a pretty small street right there, and Beverly definitely is. So again, hats off for doing a good job, because it will improve things, as you saw in some of the before and after pictures that you showed before on different projects.
Thank you for that, Vice Mayor Waring. And just in chatting with community members who served on the artist selection panel for this, she let us know that a lot of kids walk by this site from the nearby school. And the same with the site at 63rd Avenue in Osborne, is that it's a hot site, but there are a lot of families that walk by this site. So anything we can do to bring down the temperatures, soften it, and really beautify it and improve the security is to the benefit of the community fabric. And then also just coming forward, I'll be coming forward with the community well site next month, but also this project at the airport. It's the North Bridge that connects Terminal 3 to what will be the improved North Concourse. You can see what the North Bridge looks like on the top, and this project will make use of the great southwestern light that we have here to make this a really beautiful passage for passengers from the terminal out to the North Concourse. So we'll be coming forward with that and working with you in the coming months on the development of the art plan. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear comments.
Any questions? Yes, Michael?
You know, year after year, I always ask the same questions, that when we have the RFP, we're out there always telling people to shop Phoenix and buy local. And when it comes to us to actually allocate these projects, a lot of our local artists are saying, why aren't we chosen? Why aren't we considered? Why are we awarding to people that are outside of the city of Phoenix? And I understand that a lot of the RFPs have the construction work, the designers and all that locally, but the artists themselves that take this prize of joy that's here in Phoenix, and they can show it off to the whole world, that our artists want to do that too. So some of the projects that our local artists have had the opportunity to design and create, they have been notified throughout the whole state and throughout the country for other RFPs that are out there. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to show off local artists. And if there's somehow, some way with your creative minds to make sure that in the RFP that there might be somehow to help those local artists get those points they need to. I'm not sure if we're allowed to, and I'll ask again, to put in the RFP that you get graded at a higher rate for local participation of and living here in the city or within the state or within the region. But that would be one of my big concerns with that I hear out there in the community with our RFP process. And everybody loves the program. The program is great, but it's a great opportunity for our local artists too to show off their skills that they have.
Councilman Nowakowski, that's a good point. One of the things that the program's been proud of over the years is more than 50% of artists who've been involved in it have certainly been from the state of Arizona. But we also have some initiatives that have been ongoing to do training workshops, outreach workshops, so that we can get more local artists involved in the program and applying for the program. To that point, we've changed our application system to make it really easier for folks to apply for public requests for qualifications. We've gone to an online system, so you can really do it from home. You don't have to deliver anything from the city. And I think that has increased the participation as well. As far as procurement goes, it's open competition, and so we do our best to do outreach. And if you have further thoughts on outreach, we'll be happy to hear those and gain your assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, piggyback on what Councilman Nowakowski said, I could not agree more. Frankly, I've got my back up a little bit at the number of out-of-state artists that we use. You know, that's been a little bit of a frustration for me in the past, not so much recently. It seems like it's been more Phoenix or Arizona or both focused. But one thing that does strike me now that you said that is, like, if we sell a property, we've done open houses and stuff. Hey, anybody who might be interested, we've got lists of, like, we compile email lists and stuff of who might arguably be interested in this, so you get the biggest pool. So anything you can do to reach out. I know that businesses can sign up to be on the vendor lists, and so they get notified. It sounds like you kind of do the same thing with artists. Is that a fair statement?
Vice Mayor, what I can say is we issue requests for qualifications, and then when artists are interested in applying, they apply for each project, and there's criteria for each one of those.
You don't proactively, though, go out and be like, hey, this project is coming up. Maybe you'd be interested. You'd signed up in the past. We don't do anything like that.
Well, we have a vast list of people we send project sort of notifications to, and any artist can be on that list.
Okay.
And we use whatever organizations we have locally to get the word out.
Okay.
So we
So the local organizations know, so they would presumably have told anybody who's interested in art, who might possibly be able to bid on something like this.
Yes, sir. We even encourage that, and for every project that we do that an RFQ goes out, we hold pre-submittal meetings.
Okay,
So
and you have those
anytime
meetings to say-
artists or anyone, frankly, has any curiosity about the project, they can come ask questions. And we actually have sort of, as part of that workshop, a little bit of training on how to apply. So,
Yes.
you know, those can really help.
Like they have trainers for the college application process. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork and you don't want to get disqualified. You might disqualify the best person for some, technical violation or something. We don't want that. That's not the game is to trick people and disqualify themselves. So I'm glad to hear this. It's my bad because I had never thought to ask the question this way, like how do people know to apply? You mentioned the 50% plus who are Arizona artists. I would be curious if it's not a huge hassle. Obviously, a project at the airport could be $1 million project where, a bus shelter might not be. Not all the projects are created equal. I would be curious dollar amount that went to Arizona artists, which is really what matters kind of overall. It's not so much the 50%, that's great, but if then the less than 50% who are out of state got all the big projects, I think that would be something the committee would probably be interested in. I don't want to make work for you if you don't have it tracked that way, but going forward, that's something I can't believe that would be too onerous. Just going forward, we had a big project at airports, $1 million. We might have 20 other projects that don't add up to that, maybe more. Yeah, I think you take my point. You may have that data. If you don't, I would be interested in seeing it that way going forward, though.
Vice Mayor Waring and members of the subcommittee, for a number of years, we've been tracking actually the breakdown of contracts.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that's interesting about that is even if we have more than 50% of artists who are hired for projects, last I checked, there was more than 80% of the funding that went through a project was spent through contracts and subcontracts with local.
But while it's 50% for the number of people, 80% of the money stayed in Arizona.
That's what we've seen, and one of the reasons for that is you mentioned, Councilman Nowakowski. There are many of our fabrication trades, contractors, building trades who are involved in producing these projects, and so even when we have an out-of-state artist who's contracted for a design contract, and then the thing has to get built, it's often local trades who are going to be doing that, and so that's something that really interests us as well.
Thank you. I don't think there are any other questions. Sal, are you still on the phone? Would you like to ask a question? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the
Thank you very
presentation.
much.
Very well done.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the examples too. The pictures I think helped kind of illustrate what we're talking about. I think that's it. Is that correct? And I don't think we have any call to the public. Okay. Then meeting adjourned.
All right.